email from the dean of our medical school.
Alright, let's see. Dear Wake Forest School of Medicine, yesterday at noon, the USMLE announced plans to change scoring of Step 1 to pass or fail.
January 1st, 2022.
Okay, I'm safe.
Yo, what is up, my Nakama? So my name is Daniel, and I'm a first-year medical student, and you can probably already guess what we're going to be discussing in this video. We're going to be talking about the recent decision to make Step 1 pass or fail. Now, this is a huge decision that I feel like is going to affect a ton of people and have a lot of ramifications. I don't know if they're going to be positive or negative, but that's what we're going to discuss in the video. And if you feel like leaving any comments about your opinions, just feel free to leave a comment below so we can add more discussion to the table about whether this was the right decision to make. So luckily for me, since I'll be taking Step 1 in 2021, 1 year before the pass-fail system is put into place, my Step 1 score will still be graded on a 3-digit system. And I'm kind of relieved that that's happening to me so that I don't have to deal with whatever the consequences are going to be of this being pass-fail. However, it could inadvertently affect me because there might be people that are my year that will be taking Step 1 in 2022. And since we're all applying to residency positions at the same time, a lot of residency committees are going to be seeing people with a 3-digit score and people with a pass-fail score. So I have no idea how they're even going to compare those two subsets of scores, but I don't know, we'll see. So first, let's talk about why this decision was made. And to some extent, I understand why it was made. I feel like there's been so much pressure put on Step 1 that it really just causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure on first year and second year med students to perform really well on this one exam that essentially dictates what specialty they can go into. And that is of course a lot of unnecessary stress placed upon just one exam that can determine the course of the rest of your life. And I see why they want to make it pass-fail, because at the end of the day, Step 1 should just be like a benchmark. It should just be a segue into your clinical years, and it shouldn't be really used as a stratifying test to distinguish between applicants. However, that is what it is currently being used for, and I see why it's used that way, because really it's kind of the only way you can compare applicants from different schools, because different applicants have different medical school curriculums. For example, someone from Harvard compared to someone at my school, we're gonna have different medical school curriculums, so you can't really compare the grades between those two schools. However, by taking this standardized test, you can compare applicants and see which one actually prepared and studied well for the test. And now by making Step 1 pass or fail, I feel like that's gonna put a lot of unnecessary stress on students who don't go to a top 10 medical school institution. When they're applying to residencies now, they're not going to have Step 1 as a measure of how well they did in their preclinical years. Now, everyone is just going to say pass, so I feel like it's more advantageous if you go to a school that has a lot of name brand and a lot of recognition. That's really the only way now the residency committees would be able to distinguish between applicants. Okay, I mean, that's not the only way, because now there's going to be a lot more emphasis placed on Step 2. Basically, Step 2 is going to become the new Step 1. You're going to have to do extremely well since it's still a graded system. And then a lot more emphasis is going to be placed on extracurriculars and research. And although I think that extracurriculars and research in medical school is important, especially if you plan on pursuing a competitive specialty, I think that now there's just going to be even more emphasis placed upon those things when, we're going to medical school to become educated doctors. And although I'm all for, volunteering and research, a lot of people, they struggle as it is with the curriculum. And I think we need to focus on being well-educated doctors before worrying about research, before worrying about having any type of leadership. Because at the end of the day, we need to be good clinicians. Being the leader of this one random medical school extracurricular group isn't going to make or break it as a physician. But now though, that's really all the residency committees will have to go off of. So there's going to be a lot more pressure for students to spend more time outside of their curriculum in order to make themselves a good applicant for residency programs. So with Step 1 now being pass or fail, as I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot more emphasis placed on Step 2 and performing well on Step 2. And because Step 2 is still a graded metric system, that's going to be a way residencies can distinguish between applicants, because it's like a hard numerical score and they can kind of stratify applicants based off of their step 2 score. You know, if you're having to study like extremely hard for step 2 when you barely even have time to study in the first place because of your clinical rotations, that's just going to be really hard. And now there's just going to be so much emphasis placed on performing well on step 2, because that is just another metric now that the residency directors will have to compare applicants. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I've actually been saying more negatives than positives, but I think at the end of the day, I can kind of speculate what's going to happen, but we don't know. Until it's put into practice, we don't know the ramifications, but we can guess. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be kind of hard now, even for pre-med applicants, to get into medical schools, at least the schools they want to get into, because now it's going to be so important to get into like a top 10 institution with step 1 being pass-fail, that pre-meds are just going to be even more stressed with the application cycle. And I mean, the application cycle is already a mess as it is. It takes like a full year, all these secondaries, these interviews, but now having to think about, you know, what school you're going to attend, considering that step 1 is pass-fail, that is just, I don't know what they're thinking, but you know, we'll see. I'm interested to see how this is going to affect the class below us. I mean, maybe it won't have any effect, or maybe it'll actually relieve the stress of step 1 and things are just going to proceed as normally. But what's really going to be affected is the class of 2022, how the residency slots are going to be divided. I'm wondering if now like the residency programs are just going to favor like name brand schools and top 10 institutions rather than considering an applicant and the step 1 score they receive. You know, because if you studied really hard for step 1 and your results show based off of your score, I think that should be acknowledged and considered by the residency committee. But you know, now that that's not considered anymore, it's just going to be all about like extracurriculars and I guess like step 2 and your evaluations from your committee, which of course already has a lot of emphasis and weight placed upon it. But step 1 was kind of a metric, I feel like, that equalized applicants between different schools. And now that that was essentially taken away, I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts or opinions are about this recent decision to make step 1 pass or fail. If you feel like sharing your opinion, just leave a comment below. But you know, no matter what happens in medical school, you know what we're always going to do. We're going to Dattebayo.